morning. My name is Michael Roth. I'm in Americorps Vista, serving with the city of Pittsburgh through an organization called Cities of Service. As a native Pittsburgher, it's an honor to serve the communities of our great city. The goal of my year of service was to create a program that raises awareness about disaster preparedness. The response to this task is Prepared Pittsburgh. Prepared Pittsburgh brings quality information and local experts to the communities across the city and better prepares residents for various shocks and stresses they may face. This program includes 5 classes: climate change in Pittsburgh, disaster preparedness, community medicine, energy efficiency, and water awareness. Each of these classes aims to address a gap in disaster preparedness relative to the course's content. For instance, our energy efficiency class aims to address the issue of energy burden in the city. So for instance, the city of Pittsburgh and surrounding region have some of the cheapest energy prices in the country, yet we have some of the highest energy burden costs in the country as well. Energy burden being the amount of a person's paycheck that goes to paying for energy. We know there are a number of reasons for this, but the key reason is the old housing stock we have here in the city. Many of our homes are very inefficient. So to address this, our energy efficiency class aims to empower city residents with the skills and knowledge of how to reduce their energy bills, improve their energy efficiency, and weatherize their homes. Our other classes seek to fill voids in disaster preparedness too. Our community medicine class informs residents on how to save someone who's experiencing a heart attack or bleeding emergency. It is well known that providing quality bystander CPR improves patient outcome. Also, with the Stop the Bleed training, we can address one of the most preventable causes of death seen pre-hospitally, which is bleeding from trauma. To be clear, Prepared Pittsburgh is not a certification course, not a replacement for community emergency response teams, which the city is creating, or a replacement for 911 or utilization of public safety. Instead, this program seeks to inform the public about simple actions that can prevent or ease the burdens of various shocks and stresses they may face. Before I hand this over, I'd like to thank our content experts, Sustainable Pioneers, the Red Cross, the City of Pittsburgh EMS, Conservation Consultants, Inc., and Women for a Healthy Environment. Also, I'd like to thank the City of Pittsburgh staff and Cities of Service staff that have made this program possible. And also thank our great host, the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, who will be hosting many of our classes. So with that, I'll hand it over to our Chief Resilience Officer, Grant Irvin. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. As Mike said, my name's Grant Irvin. I serve as the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Pittsburgh. And my role here today, I just wanted to supply a little bit of backdrop to the Prepared Pittsburgh activities. So Prepared Pittsburgh is rooted in the work that the city has done over the past several years with its climate action plan and its 1PGH resilience strategy. One of the key lessons that we learned in both of those plans was the engagement of community and how important it is to bring residents together to both share information but also learn from one another. In fact, increasing the city's resilience, one of the easiest things that we could do is to share our neighborhoods with each other and be good neighbors to each other. The Prepared Pittsburgh program is based upon curriculum that Michael and his team have helped develop through our partnership with Cities of Service. A couple years ago, the city was fortunate enough to be awarded 2 Cities of Service volunteers through the Americorps Vista program. Michael is one of those persons who have come to us and been able to provide their time and their talent to the city of Pittsburgh, and his resources to us have been invaluable to our team. His work focuses in not just in emergency response and resilience building, but also in sustainable energy and learning how the city as well as neighborhoods and residents can share that information in terms of improving energy efficiency as well as renewable energy resources across the city of Pittsburgh. One of the key aspects of this program is the understanding that we as neighbors can help make our city a stronger place. Thanks to Michael and the work that he has offered, we are on our way to doing that. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Peduto to provide several remarks with regards to the Prepared PGH program. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant, and thanks to the entire team for putting this together. As we put together a resilient Pittsburgh plan, we basically looked at two critical areas. What are the shocks and what are the stresses to the city of Pittsburgh? And basically what that means is, what are the things that we're not preparing for, that we should be preparing for in order to minimize negative impacts to this region? We've seen it in the past. Back in the 19th century, the city burned to the ground. In the 20th century, it flooded constantly. During the 80s and the 90s, economic collapse caused this region to be knocked down to its knees. And we never prepared for those types of shocks. But on a daily basis, we see stresses. We see stresses that are a constant with our water quality, with our air quality. We see stresses that are a constant with inequity and inequity among races. We see inequity in healthcare, in access to quality housing, quality education. And those daily stresses have the same cumulative effect as a major disaster has. So in order to create a resilient city, we not only have to create a resilient city government, but we have to train the people of our city to be able to attack the stresses and the shocks that will potentially face us. And it can't be done simply through city government. It requires a partnership of nonprofits, of little kids, and of institutions like the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. It's only done through that way, and it's only done through a constant basis. So as we talk today about Prepared Pittsburgh, understand that this is just another step in our resiliency strategy in order to be able to address the negatives that we will face, whether they're the stresses that we face every day or the shocks that we could face in the future. Climate change, disaster preparedness, community medicine, energy efficiency, water awareness. All of these programs not only make us a stronger community, they make us stronger individually. They lower our bills. They allow us to be able to be more prepared to help our neighbors. And they're done in a way that, when done cumulatively, helps our entire city to become more resilient.
So as I mentioned before, this program is based upon many different partners and collaborations. One of those is with our very own City of Pittsburgh EMS. So I'm going to invite Division Chief Mark Pinchalk up to talk about community CPR program and also Stop the Bleed.
Hi, my name is Mark Pinchalk. I'm a Division Chief with EMS, and we're happy to collaborate with Prepared Pittsburgh on this project. And basically what we're doing is we're combining two community health programs we currently do into the community medicine program. So we're combining our community CPR program and our hemorrhage program into a new course for this. And basically the core skills we want to teach people to do that will keep people alive until we can get our paramedics on scene. We want to teach people to be able to do 200 chest compressions and do compression-only CPR, how to use an automatic defibrillator, and how to do basic bleeding control. On the cardiac arrest side, we have very high survival here in the city. Our survival last year from cardiac arrest was 18.5%. Nationally, that number is about 10%. The American Heart Association set a goal by 2020 for a 20% survival, and we're almost there. And what we really need is the front end of the problem, and we need more people to do chest compressions before we get on scene. So part of the thing we teach in the course is we want everyone to be able to recognize cardiac arrest and just be able to do, just be able to do 2 minutes of CPR, just doing compression-only CPR like that. The other thing we want to teach is, when available, we want people to be able to access and use automatic defibrillator. These two very simple interventions will dramatically improve survival from cardiac arrest. On the bleeding control side, we teach basic things that will control extremity bleeding, and no one really should die from an extremity wound in our mind. So we teach very simple techniques. It's just taking a towel or blanket and applying direct pressure to get control of bleeding. We actually teach how to use commercial devices, such as commercial tourniquets and commercial pressure dressings. So we understand right now a lot of these are not available in the community. We are working on grants to be able to place commercial bleeding control kits in public facilities and schools. So we'll teach all this in about an hour to an hour and a half craft course, and they're free of charge to residents of the city. Thank you.
So when will these offerings be available and how do people sign up for them?
Sure. So we've actually had a few courses happen already. There's one actually tonight at the Carnegie Library of Allegheny location. And it's on our website at 1PGH. So if you do City of Pittsburgh's main website /1PGH, it'll take you to the website that has all our course listings and dates. Yes.
I see it listed for the libraries, and I understand being able to use them. And I've also seen the publications for it, so I know it's out there. My concern is, are the people that need to see it seeing this information, and are there going to be enough classes to make sure that the people that need to take these classes are able to take them? Have you thought about going into the communities, to some of the community meetings, and getting people that are organizers in the individual communities to organize a group to come and take the classes?
Sure. So some of our courses are following that exact model. So we'll be doing a Stop the Bleed training at the Homewood YMCA with the community group to address getting the information out there. Our community affairs team has a listserv of all the different community leaders, community groups. So we have contacted them, but if there are any other ways that we can reach out to people, we're happy to do that as well. As far as the number of classes, we have our set schedule to see how that goes, but if there are more that are needed, we're happy to see where we can fit them in.
Thank you.
Yep.
How long are the classes?
So they vary depending on what the site needs are. So they could be anywhere from a half hour to an hour, but most of them are around the hour mark.
What did you decide that people need to know about climate change?
Sure. So we really wanted to focus on the shocks and stresses component of climate change. You know, whether people believe it or not, we're experiencing these changes in our environment, and they are local here. You know, everyone sees the cliche images of, you know, the polar ice caps or shoreline issues, but most of our disaster declarations here in Pennsylvania have been during hurricanes just because of the immense rainfall. So there are a number of different weather events that are exacerbated by climate change that are and currently are affecting the city of Pittsburgh, as well as landslides. That's another huge issue that we all know, and is further affected by the increasing presence of invasive species that are also associated with the warmer winters and climate.
Energy efficiency with that.
Sure. Also with energy efficiency, since we're likely to see more extreme weather events, if people can hit their energy efficiency as hard as possible, they're going to feel less of those effects from their home standpoint. And as I mentioned earlier, the energy burden issue is very serious. It's something that we can do things about, and that's why we want to spread that information. You know, it's an unnecessary burden on people who can't afford their energy bills just because their home is underperforming when it comes to energy efficiency.
What are some of the things you can do to increase the energy efficiency?
Sure. So some of the easiest things are just to weatherize your home. So filling any gaps or, you know, windows and doorways, and as well as just changing your light bulbs to LEDs, simple things like that. Getting a home energy audit is probably the best thing you could do to tactfully address different issues within your home. So that those are all sorts of things we're trying to bring to light for community members.
What about when it comes to landslides?
Sure. So the landslide issue, we're mostly talking about some of the causes of it. In our disaster preparedness class, we do have a few things of what are signs and symptoms of a potential landslide. So we do cover that. We don't directly go into landslides, but we sort of do an all hazards approach when it comes to our disaster preparedness course.
What's the goal for that? I mean, is there a certain number of people you want to reach, or what's the overall goal for this?
Sure. So we want to reach as many Pittsburghers as possible. At the end of the day, most of these classes address our 2030 goals or the 1PGH strategy. So for instance, by 2030, we want to reduce our energy usage by 50%, and we also want to have 100% renewable electricity for the entire city by 2035. So reducing that peak load of what we're using right now addresses that goal through energy efficiency, but also just to make Pittsburgh more resilient at the community level, not just at city operations level. So. Any other
What's
questions?
the cost of these classes, of the equipment and all that? Is there a cost?
Yeah, so the classes are completely free for the public. Myself and another Americorps Vista came with a grant that was from Cities of Service, so there was no city money going towards this in that sense besides hosting us. So this is not using city dollars for any of our resources or anything like that we're using, besides the volunteer time, obviously. Yes.
I'm sorry.
So it's going to be you and your one other colleague teaching all the classes? How's that?
So the grant that we came with, there were 4 Vistas, 2 for 2 years. So the first 2 addressed Love Your Resilient Block, which is another program that we run. Unfortunately, I came at an offset time, so I'm by myself right now. The other Vista has since sort of graduated the program and is actually working for the city now. So I'm by myself, but I have a great team with me at Sustainability and Resilience within city planning. So we're sort of taking charge of this.
And is there a limit on how many people can participate in each class?
It's really just whatever space permits at the locations. So I think most of our locations we've figured out for 20 to 30 people, but if we get word that we need more, we can certainly try and find a better space.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the source of the grant. You came out.
So Cities of Service is the source of the grant. Myself and the other 3 Vistas were obviously through the Americorps program. It was a $25,000 grant, but that was spread across multiple programs. So Love Your Resilient Block took the bulk of those funds. For this program, really, we just needed it for supplies and materials that we'll be handing out, so it wasn't that big of a lift for the grant.